Okay, we'll start anytime. Oh, one last one. Mm-hmm. Good afternoon, Namibia, and welcome to our daily update at 4 o'clock in the afternoon here at the COVID-19 Communications Center, which is aimed to ensure that every Namibian citizen is informed about the developments of COVID-19 in Namibia. This afternoon, we get right into it. We have a discussion around trade activities under lockdown. We have on the panel Honorable Lucy Pumbu, who is the Minister of Industrialization and Trade. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for joining us. As well as Mr. Vitalis Ndalikokule, who is the CEO of the Namibian Competition Commission. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. We would also like to remind our viewers that when we open the lines, you may call in at 061 400 397. That's 061 400 397 for you to call in and ask your questions around any issues related to trade activities under the lockdown. I would now like to go over to the Honorable Minister. We understand that the Ministry of Trade has put in place measures to ensure that business does not suffer during the ripple effects during this pandemic. So would like to know, what are these measures that the Ministry of Trade has put in place?
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister, and good afternoon to the viewers out there. The Ministry of Industrialization and Trade, under the Proclamation number 9, Regulation number 12, that empowers us to oversee and make arrangement for business activities under the state of emergency, have started with various processes to ensure that some of the business, especially the critical and essential business, remain to render services under the circumstances which we find ourselves within the pandemic of COVID-19. As it now, the ministry started with the issuance of permits to various enterprises and businesses that are of critical nature. This process we kick-started on the 30th of March, 2 days after the first pronouncement of the lockdown that affected commerce in Erongo was pronounced. To date, we have issued approximately 6,700 permits to such businesses after receiving an amount of 10,900 applications.
Sure.
And 2,600 applications were rejected. And currently, we still have 1,600 applications for permits pending. And we are saying we have been issuing such permits for the past 3 weeks. And we believe at this point in time, if you are critical and essential services, you would have made arrangement to apply for such permits. The outpour of the application still continues. However, we have revised the procedures and have decided that as at now, we are going to phase out such applications on the 24th of April. We have it under authority that we have given ample time for essential and critical services to have applied for their permits, because many of the current applications that are pending on our systems are those of the coming backs. Either were rejected before, or somebody trying their luck, because on the Saturday, which is the first day of the extension of the lockdown countrywide, by that Saturday, we only had pending applications about 200. And by that Saturday, at the end of the day, we had an extra 1,500 applications.
Alone.
A clear indication that sometimes the enterprises that are depressed and are pressed by the situation are trying their luck to see if they will be allowed to trade and carry out their business activities under the circumstances.
Well, Honorable Minister, speaking about, of course, this process and that you explained why the ministry has taken a step to close this application, there is a query around clothing shops, especially considering the extension of the lockdown, that we are approaching winter. Would there be a provision to have clothing shops to open so that people can purchase winter clothes?
Yes, Honorable Deputy Minister, under the second phase of the lockdown, there were some sectors that we revisited in terms of classification of essential. I believe by now we are all aware that there was a pronouncement for us to start slowly but surely opening up the informal sector, specifically the informal traders that are operating within the designated trading areas within our local authorities. The sector of clothing, already under the previous arrangement, we know that we made provision for baby clothing and maternity appliances and baby essentials. And we are saying we are extending that to the clothing departments, specifically for winter clothing and other winter materials, including blankets. And by extension, we are saying as winter is approaching, some of us could have already had our winter materials that could have been stored somewhere and kept safe, but would need to be prepared for the upcoming winter. We have then said we are also extending the opening and operations to dry cleaners, so that they will be able to ensure that our winter materials are ready for use, as we are seeing that slowly but surely winter is picking up. Another category that we have also revisited is the building materials sector, that we are saying, as at now, we are required to refurbish, remodel some of our infrastructures to make provision for facilities in response to the quarantine facilities and other facilities that are needed for COVID-19 purposes. And we are saying it's high time for us to loosen up and open some building materials. And we have also experienced the weather change, that we still have rain continuing, and 2 days ago we received a prominent downpour, which to a certain extent could effect some harms and some undesirable outcomes to our dwellings. And some of us then would be in a position to rehabilitate our roofs and our houses in our particular dwellings, just to respond to the call of nature. And as such, we are saying those ones we are loosening up. And as time goes, we are also reviewing sectors one by one, just to determine the critical importance of specific sectors, and then ensure that we as much as should remain within the parameters of the regulations as crafted by the Ministry of Health, we are also not unnecessarily inconveniencing our people.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I now move over to Mr. Dalikokule. We understand that the Commission is tasked with providing consumers with competitive prices and product choices. However, it has been noticed that there has been an escalation in pricing of essential products when the pandemic broke. What we then would like to know is what modalities were employed to ensure this practice actually stops, and that consumers are protected from retail shops that have actually escalated the price of essential services that in this pandemic have become a necessity.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. Yes, the Commission's responsibility and mandate is basically to safeguard and promote competition within the Namibian market. The issue of consumer prices is one of the key aspects within the mandate of the Commission. Yes, since the declaration of the state of emergency and the lockdown, there has been complaints of price increases, especially by retailers and distributors of essential products that are required in the fight against COVID-19. What we have done in collaboration with the Ministry of Industrialization and Trade, initially we issued a warning to the market not to increase prices unnecessarily. But it seems there are some retailers who did not heed that call. Now, as a result, we then teamed up with the Ministry of Industrialization to see what are the measures that we can put in place to ensure that the consumers are not exploited. We we then drafted price control regulations for essential products, and I want to underline essential products that are necessary in the fight against COVID-19. Here we're referring to products like your hand sanitizers, your immune boosters, your materials that are required to sanitize and so on. So these products, now we have identified them, we have listed them in the regulation, we have drafted the regulation. I am informed that the drafters has now finished with the regulation, and it's just a matter of time before they are gazetted and issued to the market, and we expect the retailers to comply with the regulation.
Mr. Vitalis, are there any adverse effects or consequences for those that do not comply with these regulations?
Yes, certainly, Honorable Deputy Minister, there are the regulations make provisions for penalties that will then be imposed to those who will not be complying to the regulations. And hence, we are saying that we would want to ensure that the retailers comply to the regulation to avoid us basically using that tool of imposing penalties.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, I'd like to get back to you. We have a lot of queries around rental payments. Of course, it's a balancing act between those who are actually charging rent and those who are paying, and that some citizens would like rental holidays to be able not to pay rent in this difficult time because income has been lost and so on. How is the Ministry of Trade balancing those two interests? Because also those who are having rentals depend on that rent to put food on the table. How has the ministry interacted to balance those two interests?
Thank you very much, Honored Deputy Minister. What we are aware of now, there has been some concerns as we follow through the medias, but as at now, we did not receive as yet a formal complaint on that regard. The arrangement as at now, the Rent Control Board is on its way out from the Ministry of Industrialization and Trade to the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development, where it will be housed going forward. We were in the process of making those arrangements. However, as at now, we are still responsible. And what we are saying, if there are legitimate complaints out there, we would like to invite the tenants who are falling in that category to approach our offices and register their legitimate cases. So far, and I'm underlining, we have not received any legitimate case on that regard. We are also aware of the fact that the financial institutions have made arrangements for payment holidays for some of the landlords and property owners. And we know also that there could be some property owners and landlords who are still receiving their dues in terms of their salaries and in terms of income that's supposed to come to them. And we are also aware of tenants out there who would want to make use of the opportunity to abuse the system. What we are saying is that submit your case legitimately, case by case. We are going to investigate. As much as we can't promise what we will do thereafter, depending on the outcome of each case, we will devise strategies going forward on how to handle such cases. And all what we are saying as it now, specifically to the landlords, we all know the situation we are in terms of this pandemic, and we all know how all of us are affected, specifically when it comes to our income, especially those of us whose income is derived from the day-to-day activities, and we all understand the challenges that comes with that arrangement. And what we are saying, our landlords and property owners, due to the fact that they are also, to a certain extent, accommodated by the financial institution in terms of their payments, they should relax their requirements also. But I am saying, and I'm underlining, only on specific cases. Because sometimes we may use the opportunity to say that I am not in a position to pay my rent, when in actual fact I have received my salary, and I'm supposed to just pay my rent because I have received my salary as it is. And what we know also is that there could be arrangements to be made between the tenants and the landlords for spreading out those payments that are due to be paid at a later stage. And each case and each tenant is supposed to have a good relationship with their tenants or their landlords. And we are saying it's not applicable to all the tenants. There could be some arrangement where they don't see an eye to eye, but those are exceptional cases. We are saying anybody who have a legitimate case, who is being told to exit the premises where they are housed as it now, they should register their case with full details of the tenants, correct contact details, information of the landlords as well, so that we can institute processes of investigation. And thereafter, when we have built up legitimate cases, we will move to seek a solution, maybe by intervention with other responsible stakeholders that may assist us to find a lasting solution to such cases.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I would like to remind our viewers and listeners at home that we are speaking about trade activities under the lockdown, and we invite you to send in your questions through, of course, our email address, but however, you're also welcome to call in at 061 400 397. That is 061 400 397, and the lines are now open for you to call in and ask your questions. Mr. Vitalis, we, of course, heard the socioeconomic impact this COVID-19 pandemic has on the country. Your commission is, of course, working hard to put regulations in place to the retailers. But are there any other interventions your commission has taken to ensure that every citizen is able to cope with this pandemic?
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. Yes, the purpose of us coming up with the price control regulation is basically to ensure that consumers are protected, and more particularly when it comes to products that are necessary in the fight against COVID-19. Look, we live in a society where income are not equal. There are a section of our society that may not be able to afford these products that are so essential in the fight against COVID-19. Now, if there is an attempt on the part of the retailers to increase prices, exploit consumers, whereby prices are basically increased without necessarily being attributed to the operation cost or the costs of sale of those products, then what you would have basically is a price increase that does not have any relation to cost. And what we are saying is, we know retailers are in business to make money, but that should not be an issue where retailers basically exploit consumers, where they are setting prices that are not justifiable. Price must be justifiable in terms of cost, and hence the measures that we are putting in place is basically to ensure that we protect the consumers and ensure that all of us as citizens have access to these products that are so essential in the fight against COVID-19.
And would this apply post-COVID-19, or is it strictly for the time the state of emergency has been effected?
Yes, the regulations that we are putting in place are in terms of Article 26 of the Constitution. They will remain in place until such time that their purpose as envisaged in terms of Article 26 of the Constitution no longer applies. So they will only be basically removed in terms of the Article 26 of the Constitution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vitalis. We have a caller on the line. We have Bowana from Windhoek. Bowana?
Yes, good afternoon, Honorable Deputy Minister and the guests there.
Thank you very much. You may go ahead.
So I would like to find out whether there is some relief measures for the consumers who normally flock to these micro lenders. So the relief, because I know that most of the students are stuck into cash loaning. How are the measures applied and the consumer are protected from getting exploited from those micro lenders? So because we are not credit worthy and most of us, we don't approach financial institutions to get financial relief. So many of us are going to cash loan. How are we getting some relief measures from those micro lenders?
Thank you very much, Boana.
Welcome. Thank you, ma'am.
I'm not so sure if this is now directed to my panelists, but there's a question of cash loans and cash lenders. How are consumers protected from that?
In terms of arrangement asset activities, on to go on. If you want an institution, you can make those arrangements via the communication channels of the internet and other digital setups. And what we are saying is that we would not like to see those institutions opening up, for we know specifically now the challenge that we are in, that we will find very long queues there and everybody looking for money. However, if there are arrangements between such institutions and their clients and individuals who would want to approach them to do such through digital means, I see no reason why it should not continue. However, actual opening as it now, unfortunately, under the arrangement is not permitted.
Thank you. Perhaps you could ask the media practitioners on the floor here at the COVID-19 Communications Center also to ask their questions. If you have a question, please just make your way to the microphone as we continue to wait for more callers to come in through our telephone line. That is 061 400 397, 061 400 397. Well, Honorable Minister, as we wait on that, there's a question around, of course, post-COVID-19 plans that the ministry might have to create more industry, empower local producers for Namibia to become more self-reliant in terms of food production and manufacturing. We understand that just recently you had a textile donation of clothing material to be able to make masks at a time such as this. So are there any of those post-COVID-19 plans?
Honorable Deputy Minister, in every challenge there are lessons to be learned. We have learned so many lessons for the past 3 weeks, if I may summarize it as such. And those lessons, we are saying, how are we going to do things differently going forward? We don't know what is the next pandemic, its magnitude, and when it is going to strike. And we must be prepared at all times to contain such pandemics in terms of self-reliance. As at now, if South Africa or any country could have closed their borders, we were going to be in a devastated state. And as at now, we are saying the lessons we have drawn in terms of upscaling our own manufacturing sector, we are going to chart the way forward for us on how to plan better. In actual fact, when we look at the manufacturing sector, we are sure, and we have made assessment in the past, that we have the capacity. Maybe we were just relaxed because things were business as usual. And as it now, when you see other countries closing their borders for exportation and importation of goods, these are lessons that are to teach us going forward to start doing the little that we could do for ourselves. In terms of our agriculture sector and food sufficiency, we need to devise new strategies to produce enough, not only for current consumption, but enough for storage and for any eventualities. We need to have consignment that are set aside for any eventualities. And I believe as an economic sector, through various subsectors, that we have agriculture, mining, fishing, and all other economic cluster sectors. We are working on the post-COVID strategy.
Thank you.
We are getting together and we are crafting the strategy that we will share with the public immediately after the lockdown.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We have another caller on the line before we take our journalist on the floor. We have Michelle from Windhoek. Michelle?
Hi.
Yes, you may go ahead, Michelle.
I just quickly want to find out. I went to a shop this morning to buy winter clothes for my 10-year-old son. And I was refused because they said it's only for babies until 7 years. Are we allowed to buy clothes for 10-year-olds and above or not?
Thank you. That is very clear. We'll now take the question from the journalist here, Ms. Dapewa-Shali.
A caller actually preempted one of my questions, so I'll start with that one. The plan or the idea to only have essential services open and to have certain shops closed, like clothing shops, is so that, as I understood, to prevent as much as, or to have as little contact between people and people out on the street. Has the government and the trade ministry specifically explored e-commerce and the e-commerce industry in Namibia in order for there to be arrangements so that they can be then the link between the retailers and then the people who are seeking this? For example, we are heading into winter and people need blankets, people need winter clothes. That's the one question. And then the second question is also that what is the plan to gradually get back into the trade, into Namibia trading again? We know that the restaurants are closed and all some other shops are closed, fabric stores and so on. What is the plan to gradually get back into that? And also, we do not know how long exactly this pandemic is going to continue. Are we going to wait until the lockdown ends if it's not extended further, or are there any alternative plans if it is extended that we're going to explore other means to make sure that trade continues? And then to the CEO.
That's the last one.
Yes, and then to the CEO, consumer protection we've spoken about now, and it's a question that we've been asking for some time now regarding the regulation of price hikes and also price fixing. Firstly, those entities, those grocery shops and those people who have made themselves guilty of price fixing in this time, in this period where there was not really a regulation, are they known, and also what action is going to be taken against them? And also, what does this say to the future of the consumer protection law in Namibia, what we have experienced now?
Thank you. Perhaps we can start with you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you for the questions. The first question is an extension to the response I gave earlier on in terms of winter clothes. What we are saying, as from today, when we make this public announcement, we have already drafted letters to the retailers that are falling in that category for them to start opening up and loosening up for winter clothes. And we do not have a classifications in terms of age. We know specifically for children, it's a priority. Because for adults, I can still perhaps to a certain extent fit in the same winter jersey that I wore last year. But for the children, as they grow, every year there is a need for new materials and new clothing, especially when we come to winter. We are saying, as from tomorrow, when the letters reach the designated retailers, they will then open up for such. And there was an additional question in terms of the arrangement for e-commerce. We have been, ever since day one of the lockdown, encouraging trading through electronic means. And we are saying such arrangements are safe and are encouraged going forward. the initiative cannot only come from government, but from the traders themselves. If you have been watching the media, you see to a certain extent how some of the business establishments that we have remodeled and they have customized their services to the e-trading. Such I have seen some restaurants and some food outlets that have devised a mechanism of order and delivery of food parcels to their clients and their potential clients. Such arrangements we are encouraging, and we know when we talk about the fourth industrial revolution, that's where we are heading.
Of course.
And we can encourage by all means all trading to develop into such a level. And we are saying going forward, we will look at the legislations that we have to see how we effect that going forward.
Before I give Mr. Vitalis a chance, just to follow up on that as well, there's a question around now post when things actually start to normalize. What is the plan for outlets to start reopening? And of course, even the closing shops, I would assume that even if they open, they still need to ensure that social distancing is followed and all of those things. Perhaps you could touch a little bit on that.
Yes, I have alluded to earlier on that we are in the process of crafting a strategy post-COVID, post-lockdown. Activities are going to pick up. We know the economy is not functioning as of now, and the economy will not function to its fullest capacity in the next 3-6 months, because it's going to be a gradual process. We are saying, even if we open up, we still have to observe certain measures. For as long as we still have cases of COVID-19 within the borders of our country, for as long as COVID-19 is a global pandemic, we have to take precautions. And even at the time we are going to open up, we will ensure that we observe the regulations specifically by the Ministry of Health. The distancing, social distancing, sanitizing, disinfecting, these are attributes that are going to live with us for quite some time going forward. And in terms of opening up businesses, we are also going to regulate some conducts, that certain businesses will start slowly, certain businesses' activities will pick up with time. We will control the volumes of, specifically the traffic of who gets into what shop at what time. We will, maybe to a certain extent, also regulate trading hours, just to ensure that we don't fall back. So far, as a country, we are doing well in terms of the effects of the COVID and us ensuring that we don't multiply the infection, especially local infection. But we need to devise better strategies and better mechanisms to ensure that we don't increase the cases, but instead to phase them out.
Thank you, Honorable. Before I get to you again, Mr. Vitalis, we have a caller on the line. We have Ms. Frederica from Windhoek.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to ask, since the lockdown, it started on 27th of last month, and we are here at Havana. Since that day, we did not receive the food from the councillor. The councillor did not come to here to explain to us why he doesn't want to give us the food. We have been waiting for long now. Our names were written. Then the committee takes our names to the councillor or to the office of the councillor. But still, it's now more than 3 weeks. We did not receive the food.
All right.
And especially me, I'm just I used to sell my fat cake, but now that the lockdown is affecting us, there's no way I can able to help my children and my sisters and our kids.
All right.
We are just waiting for the food to come, but it's Till now, the food is not, we did not receive the food.
All right, ma'am. Thank you very much, Ms. Frederica. Your query is very
It's Samora
clear.
Machar. It's Samora Machar
Constituency.
constituency.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I think that it would be a response by Ministry of Urban, but however, I will give over to Mr. Vitalis to respond to the question he asked. He was asked around price fixing.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. Yes, the first question I think relates to whether the retailers that increased prices significantly after the declaration of the state of emergency and the lockdown, whether they are known or not. Yes, if you would remember, the warning that we have issued to the market immediately after the declaration of the state of emergency and the lockdown basically was done after having done a preliminary assessment of the price of certain goods in the market here in Windhoek. Now, you would agree with me, although we may not have covered all the retailers in terms of assessing the price increase, if you know the Namibian market, if you pick up a group of retailers here in Windhoek, you may have a fairly good idea of the prices across the country because you have few retailers and you will be able to pick them up so quickly. But yes, we would still be able to work to ensure that we cover the whole country in terms of assessing the impact in terms of price increases, especially these price increases that were done after the declaration of the state of emergency, because, as we are saying, they are not reflective of operational costs and they are not perhaps reflective of the cost of sale. So it's prices that were set unjustifiably, and the reason basically is because of the fact that there is a lockdown, the retailers took advantage of the increase in demand. And given the increase in demand for these specific products, especially the healthcare products, but also we are seeing also some food items that are also necessary in the fight against COVID-19, we're also seeing some price increases as well there. So the retailers then pick up the increase in demand and they increase prices. But these prices may not be attributable to the cost of operation of these retailers or the cost of sale. And hence we are saying this may not be justifiable prices in terms of increasing these prices. The second question was as to whether there would be any action with regard to those who have increased prices. The regulation is very clear in terms of the actions to be taken, but we are also calling upon the members of the public and the consumers out there, if they pick up the price increases for these products that are annexed to the regulations that are to be issued, they are requested to contact us, the Competition Commission, so that we investigate and action will be taken with regard to those who increase prices unnecessarily.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from any media practitioners in the room? There seems to be none, and I'm not receiving any callers. Perhaps I can ask this question to the... Oh, we have a caller, okay. Yes, caller, you have the opportunity. Hello?
Yes, I would want to ask why, the question on the government.
Yes, you can go ahead with your question, sir.
Yeah, since we are having those street vendors and small shops that are having products that are getting contaminated or rotten or something, can the government not rebuy these products from the people who cannot sell, the street vendors and the small shops, and then maybe donate it to as a food bank or resell it to people who are still working? That's one. The other one is that, to my understanding, is that maybe that one will relate to maybe when you bring agriculture in. Since my understanding is that rhino horns, they are more valuable than even diamonds. Why don't we do business with rhino horns in Namibia to sell to countries that need to do it with medicines or something like that? My question.
Okay.
Two questions.
Your questions are noted, sir. Thank you very much.
All right.
A question from a journalist on the floor, ma'am. Yes?
It's just my question on the future of consumer protection laws. What are the lessons that the Competition Commission has learned now, the wrongs that were done against the consumers? And then also, what is the future for consumer protection laws in Namibia, especially with the lessons? Just that question.
Okay, thank you. We have one last caller. I just prefer to take everything together. Yes, you have the floor, caller.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Yes, good afternoon. You may go ahead, ma'am.
Oh, my question was, I wanted to find out, since there are people that can't read and write, so what happened? They applied for the grant and was rejected because of putting in a wrong ID number.
Okay, so this is in respect to the emergency income grant.
Yes.
Okay, unfortunately we don't have finance here, but we do take note of the questions around other sectors and that we are able to respond to them in due time. So we'll pass on that query to the Ministry of Finance.
Because then again, there's others that were working and they were taxpayers, but they're no more working currently, and they are also rejected because they were taxpayers.
That is well taken note of. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. That was, of course, for finance on the emergency income grant. There is a question that was asked about food that perhaps government should buy from those that can now not resell. But I understand that through the ministry facilitation and the Ministry of Urban, informal markets are starting to operate. So perhaps just to touch a little bit on that, Honorable Minister.
Yes, we have given leeway to the informal markets to start slowly opening up. Mm-hmm. The producers who are producing in volumes and are struggling to find a market, I believe there's an arrangement by the Ministry of Agriculture for AMTA to procure such produce and further redistribute them for the benefits of the pandemic casualties and those that are in quarantine. Mm-hmm. And I know through the Office of the Prime Minister, there are arrangements to procure local produce mm-hmm. of whatever kind for now for further distribution for consumption by the nation out there mm-hmm. in the arrangement that are currently in place under the activities of that are combating the COVID-19. Again, when it comes to opening up, ensuring that the retailers their businesses of such commodities can only take place within the designated area.
Of course.
We have some SME parks out there who are currently not functional. We are in discussion with the Ministry of Urban and Rural mm-hmm. to maybe avail some of these premises for specifically the traders who are not accommodated in the designated premises, maybe to be accommodated in some of them. But these are arrangements going forward, and as we are loosening up in terms of ensuring that we are slowly but surely moving back to normalcy.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Before I give Mr. Ndelikokule a chance, I'd just like to inform our viewers and listeners that we have closed all our lines, but however, you're more than welcome to continue sending in your questions and queries to our email address, that is covid.nam@mict.gov.na, so that we're able to respond to them with the panelists that come here at the Communications Center. Mr. Vitalis.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Minister. The question of the future of consumer protection law in Namibia, you would appreciate that in Namibia we have a separation of competition law and consumer law. Currently, the Competition Commission is only mandated to deal with issues of competition law. The consumer protection law still resides under the Ministry of Industrialization. However, during this time, this effort that we are talking about currently is a joint effort, recognizing that the consumer protection issue is still an issue that resides under the Ministry of Industrialization, and hence we are talking about a joint effort in terms of price control to ensure that we protect consumers. I am well, confident that the competent authority in terms of consumer protection law would be able to answer on the future of competition law.
Right.
Consumer.
Perhaps, Honorable Minister, you could touch a little bit on that.
The consumer protection policy have undergone several levels of scrutinization. As it now, it's at the final stage of being approved, and we know it will see the light of the day shortly, maybe in the next 2-3 months, when we resort back to normalcy. And I should give that assurance that once it's effected, we will then have it being operationalized and then respond to those challenges that were just alluded to.
All right. We're about to round up. However, I have one more question. This is really around the sale of alcohol, that the regulations were relaxed, and it is allowing now the sale of alcohol irrespective of the percentage content, but of course the regulations are very specific on that. The question is, what informed this decision by government?
Honorable Deputy Minister, maybe just to clarify there, there has not been actual relaxation. There has just been accommodation of a definition of a liquor as per the Liquor Act. The Liquor Act, as it now defines alcohol and alcohol beverages, the ones that have got a content of more than 3%.
And this has been a standing law since 1998.
It has been a standing law for as long as the Liquor Act existed.
Yeah.
Maybe because of the outcry, we just had to flag that out. However, this does not mean we are going to open alcohol outlets. The regulations are very clear on that. However, where you have beverages and drinks that are falling within the category of the 3% of the alcohol content that you may find in a supermarket shelf, that you may find in a restaurant, that you may find in a hotel or food outlet, we are saying, yes, they can be bought, of course, with control in terms of the quantity.
Of course.
Because sometimes the content can be 3%, but it depends on the volume of how much you consume. And that on its own will already impact and contravene the section that we would not want to see anybody intoxicated so that they unnecessarily end up harming themselves and by default contracting COVID-19.
Of course.
So what we are saying, the bottle stores, the bars, and all other alcohol retailer shops should remain closed. And when we are going to open up, we are still going to have some directives and regulations because it's going to be a gradual process. We might, to a certain extent, first look at the content of alcohol in terms of reopening up, trading hours, and all other considerations that we may make just to ensure that we do not unnecessarily create a platform for our citizens to harm themselves and to contract the disease unnecessarily. There is going to be a regulated process, and maybe it will kick in phases.
Of course.
Because like I have said, nothing is going to start as normal comes the 6th of May. There is still going to be a gradual process of reinforcement of whatever business and trade activities that we are going to venture in going forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I'd now like to invite Mr. Ndalikokule to just give his concluding remarks as we round up this discussion.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. In conclusion, we just want to inform the retailers out there that the price control regulations are now on its way, and that we expect all the retailers to comply with the regulation. The purpose is basically to ensure that we all make our contribution to the fight against COVID-19, and we can only do that if we assist the less fortunate of society to be able to afford these essential products that are required in the fight against COVID-19. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Honorable, you also have some time to give your resounding concluding remarks.
What we want to say to the traders out there is that we understand their predicament, and as a nation, I believe all of us understand the effect of COVID-19. We know the challenge in terms of the economy that we are facing, and we are mindful of how long we are going to live with the effects of COVID-19 in terms of reviving our economy. However, we are saying, as at now, let's adhere to the regulations in place. It's a temporal arrangement. It might not be a comfortable place to be, as at now, in terms of our business activities. But if we stick to the regulations and phase out the pandemic, we are going to be in a better place. The international economy is also not responsive as at now. I know there was a concern raised by one of the callers in terms of why can't we trade this or that commodity now to ensure that we have sufficient income. But at this point in time, if we are to observe the international economy, the value of the dollar, we are not in a good space. And as soon as we are back to normal, I believe our economic activities are going to pick up slowly but surely. And for our traders and entrepreneurs across the country, hang in there. It's a matter of time, and we are going to revive slowly. And I believe we also then got an opportunity to arrange our business activities in a better fashion. Going forward, we are going to have better trading facilities. We are going to observe health regulations in general, not only for COVID, but for the lasting benefits of us as a nation. And I believe if we all pull together with the same understanding, we are going to face this out, and we are going to revive our activities in no time, but only if we, by now, fully comply with the regulations in place.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Viewers and listeners at home, that brings us to the end of today's daily update at 4 p.m. when we spoke about the activities under trade as we have the lockdown across the country. Please be reminded that you can continue to send in your queries and questions around any sector to our email address covid.nam@mict.gov.na, and that tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock we're going to have the agricultural sector and discuss how COVID-19 in Namibia has impacted its operations. So please continue to call the Health Ministry's toll-free number, that's 0800 100 100, for your COVID-19 related queries and questions and concerns, as this will allow you to have a better understanding of the health sector's efforts in ensuring that we continue to combat the further spread of COVID-19 in Namibia. Please continue to practice social distancing, continue to stay at home, and only go out when you need essential services, and be able to help all of us to fight COVID-19 in Namibia. Keep safe, God bless you, and see you tomorrow.